Have you got superstars and high performers on your team? Do you shower them with praise? Do you give them the juiciest projects? Are they the first people you think of for bonuses or performance-based raises? Now ask yourself, are you perhaps a bit over-reliant on them? Look, we get it. Your star employees get stuff done. You trust them to take on the project, the client, the meeting, whatever. But not only do you risk burning out your superstars if you lean on their talents too much, you can really piss off the rest of your team, making them feel undervalued and underappreciated. You might also be denying them opportunities for growth. What happens if one of your superstar talents leaves or gets promoted? Is anyone from your B team ready to fill their shoes? And even worse, what if you're missing out on seeing and rewarding an amazing talent because you've decided that employee just isn't a high performer? When you have a few employees who outshine everyone, it can be easy to create an environment where only they shine. So how do you recognize, nurture, and make the most of your entire team? This is Manage This, a series for everyone playing manager in the middle. Each episode, we help managers tackle everyday problems that occur when you're both leading a team and being managed in return. I'm your host, Mandi Gosling. This episode is Benchwarmer Brilliance, Unlocking the Potential of Your B Team. So let's start with what we mean by B Team here. These are your so-called steady eddies, the ones who are neither high performers nor low performers. They come in, they do their jobs well. Maybe you don't think of them first when assigning a flashy new project, but the work they do is solid. Or perhaps they don't typically make the bonus shortlist because other people on your team have just done so much more this year. But they meet expectations and even sometimes surpass them, but maybe not consistently. Surveys are a bit all over the place, but generally it seems like high performers make up anywhere from 2 to 20% of an organization's workforce, while low performers make up roughly the same number. That leaves a huge portion of your employee base in the solid, good, okay range. So are you getting the best out of that massive group? I had the chance to chat with Alyson Walker, a VP at Wasserman, a sports marketing and talent agency. She's been steeped in the world of sports for the past 2 decades, both as an athlete on various teams and also behind the scenes at organizations like the Canadian Olympics Committee and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So she has plenty of familiarity with all stars. The first thing Alyson flagged is that companies are made up of a wide variety of individuals, each with unique motivations and working styles. And like any good sports team, you really do need them all.
I've been leading teams. I've been coaching sports teams for over 20 years. I strongly believe that every employer, every team player has an equally important role to play in the business. Having said that, I do agree that not all employees are type A, deeply oriented around growth, highly driven to succeed and advance in title or responsibility at a rapid pace. And so given that, I think it's really important to understand each of your employees. I really believe in diversity of thought and the power of each and every person within an organization to drive the sum total. In order for our creative team at Wasserman to be successful, they need the space to be able to ideate, to be able to really create amazing content and amazing campaigns. But in order to do that, there also needs to be the type of person that is in an account management role, who is really understanding from our clients and partners what their marketing objectives are, that is making sure that we are being efficient in how we go through the process of creative ideation. You also need the accounting team behind that, and of course the HR group behind that, to make sure that employees have what they need to succeed at their very best. Everybody has a very important role to play, and some of those roles are much more steady and predictable and repetitive, and some of those roles change on a day-to-day basis in terms of what they're doing, and each person fits that in a different way.
While you can have a company of all-star employees, do you need a company of overachievers and high performers? You could certainly try and hire for that, but you might end up missing out on some fantastic talent who brings something totally different to the table. Also, let's face it, it's not like you can just magically hire superstars. They aren't like kept in a cupboard somewhere ready for your picking at your easiest convenience. You tend to hire the best talent in front of you at the time and make the most out of who you got. So why do so many organizations get so focused on those superstars?
You talk about the overachievers, the high performers. and the people that you really want to retain. And that's a natural thing for leaders to do, because no doubt you want those that are achieving results and high achieving to be able to stay in your organization and continue to drive results. And so I think some of it is a bit systemic. We also need to look at, in some organizations, it is a bell curve type of analysis at the end of the year in terms of how incentives are paid out, how bonus is paid out. And so in some cases, you are forced to place people along the curve of high achieving, low achieving, sort of that normal.
Putting people into boxes isn't a bad thing per se. The trick is not to get bogged down by those boxes.
There are really, really effective people in an organization that are consistently driving, whether it's behind the scenes results or public facing results, but aren't necessarily as obvious. And so I think the dangers are you miss some of the great employees that are actually part of the very foundation of what you're trying to achieve by only focusing on, let's say, the more overt characteristics of a superstar.
So first, check your own biases. How do you actually rank that employee's performance? Is the person a steady Eddie or average performer because you're comparing them to your superstars? Or are they achieving results and doing good work? Have they met the goals you've set for them? And importantly, do you know what drives them to succeed? And are they set up in their role for success?
I really believe that identifying where people fit best is going to give them the best chance to optimize their performance. The way I thought about this discussion really is about different personality traits and different ways people approach work, and the need to really understand how to bring the most out of each person. And I think that's the focus for me of this conversation, which is how do you optimize each employee in your organization? And so it all comes back to really understanding who your employees are, what their strengths are, where they're motivated, how you ensure that they are productive in the workplace and enjoying themselves. Is this person motivated by how we're leading or how the organization is communicating their objectives? Is this person able to be, I'll use the broad term, productive, achieve what we need them to achieve in the role in a reasonable level? Everybody doesn't need to be knocking it out of the park all the time.
Can you create a formal process for understanding how to optimize each employee?
I really think that it's important to track employee performance. We started with a very simple set objectives, review objectives mid-year, and of course, year-end review of performance for the year. And all of this, of course, ties to your corporate objectives and to your incentive plan. And I think that's important because it allows for the employee to share their thoughts, to share their progress. It allows, of course, for the manager to assess performance.
Formal review processes are going to look very different organization to organization, but these check-ins help you track progress against a shared set of objectives. That might seem straightforward, but it helps you, the manager, benchmark their actual successes versus your perception of their successes, or lack thereof, as well as hear about what's important from their perspective around career growth. We're not really talking about underperformers here, but this is also a good way of keeping up with and hopefully helping them as well. And if your organization doesn't have these formal processes in place, you can consider implementing more regular formal check-ins with your team. One of Rotman's faculty have an interesting approach. There's a link in the description if you wanted to read more, and let us know in the comments if this is a topic you want us to cover in a future video. These meetings are also an opportunity for you to set expectations clearly. What does it mean to achieve their goals? What actually is expected of them in their role day to day? What might superstar behavior even look like if that's something they want to be chasing?
I often find that particularly as people become, they grow in their role and they manage people or they manage clients and accounts, there's uncertainty around who's expected to proactively take on the leadership of this meeting or this project. I just had this conversation last week. So-and-so didn't proactively take a leadership role, create an agenda, create a framework for how multiple stakeholders are going to work together. The question is, was there expectation that that was their role? And so there's some nuances there that you really need to be clear that you're setting expectations.
You might know this person is supposed to take on this task, but they also need to know that's their responsibility, and sometimes they just don't. especially if there is or was a superstar on the team who has historically taken charge. Next, you want to make sure everyone on your team is empowered, and that often means giving an employee ownership over something.
Ownership can look and feel very different. Somebody owning a project, or owning all client relationships, or owning a program, something that isn't where someone's over their shoulder micromanaging them all the time. And of course, this is again where it's up to the leader to figure out how much has that person demonstrated or earned that right to own things, and to what size and what level of role and responsibility. And then you can check in with them along the way. Of course, you can be available to them to guide them, allow them to find their own way.
It's important to, again, recognize your own biases towards your superstars. Are you inclined to give yet another important project to one of your high achievers because you know they'll do great and it's really important that it succeeds? Are you feeling time crunched and it's just easier to give it to your overachiever because then you don't have to train and mentor other people on the team? Look, let's get real here. Part of your job is to make sure everyone on the team is in the position of doing the best job they can. And that will probably mean finding time in your own schedule to support their growth. So no, you can't just rely on those superstars to take on all these projects. Besides, that's just a recipe to burn out your high achievers.
It's hard to not give that to somebody that has done it many times before or has earned the right to own that and be autonomous.
So how do you break that habit, especially when you know a high performer is going to do so well on that project?
Maybe it's not the exact same project. Maybe it's parts of that project. Often it's the case that they don't have as much experience or they haven't been given autonomy before. And so maybe you give them it's the same project, but you do more check-ins, or you give them a part of it where they don't make the final decision, but they come to you for a quick check-in. And along the way, you're teaching them to figure out, okay, so here's the challenge, the problem we're trying to solve. Here are a number of different ways that we could go about solving it. And so I think it's just a nuanced way of leading your people, of supporting them when they're ready. And so instead of having to just continue to give projects to someone that has proven themselves, you're giving other people the chance to prove themselves.
And as a manager, you have to be prepared to recognize the achievements of all your employees, even when they might not be splashy.
A highlight can be a really efficient, on-time, tight closing of the year-end books or the monthly financials, or they could mean that we've had absolutely no cyber attacks, no malware issues, no IT issues, or they could mean we closed a $4 million deal.
Because at the end of the day, you're a team. And when you have a few employees who do exceptionally well, the dangers of them overshadowing others is real.
We were just at the Buffalo Bills game. Quarterbacks are often the stars, or maybe running backs, because it's analogous with what I was saying before. They score the most. That is the most celebrated moment in a football game. And so they get the most acknowledgement. They are the stars. There's no doubt about it. And yet a quarterback cannot be effective without the best offensive line. And that offensive line needs to understand each and every play within the playbook. Every play is different. And I would say on the best teams, everybody's an equal. And everybody understands that without each other, without the special teams that go out and do the special things that aren't the regular roles, you will not get to the Super Bowl. You will not win.
So, are you going to take a closer look at your average employees? Will you meet with them more regularly, or do you think you already do this? What topics should we consider in future episodes? Comment below, and please subscribe to this series, our whole YouTube channel, or the Rotman Insights Hub. Click the link in the description to get more thought leadership and research-backed management tips from the Rotman community. Thanks for joining us.